as Tiffany mentioned, I wrote a book that was published in 2013, and it went #1 bestseller in 5 categories on Amazon.com, and it's opened up a lot of doors for me as well. But this book is really a labor of love. It took us 3 years to write it, and it really is sort of my philosophy about business and why women are so uniquely situated to lead and build a powerful economy. And we call it the new economy. And I'll talk about that why in a minute. But one thing you may not know about me is that I have entrepreneurial ADD. Some people say I lack focus. These are not all my logos. I have others I chose to leave off. I launch, I don't know, a new company every few months. It's kind of my thing. I really am passionate about that. I have lots of ideas. I own a ton of URLs. I'm constantly applying for trademarks for myself. It's a little bit of a sickness. It's like hoarding almost. I think it's like businesses. But I love it. I'm so passionate, and I come from a legal background. So I spent I think it was about 13 or 14 years as a lawyer before I caught the entrepreneurial bug, and boy, did I ever. And I still practice law, but what gets me out of bed in the morning is not only launching my own businesses, which I have launched many of, but helping people just like you launch your businesses. And I believe when people ask me what my purpose in life is, I'm very, very sure that my purpose is to empower, educate, and inspire women to find financial independence and fulfillment through entrepreneurship. Because I believe that entrepreneurship is an enormously powerful tool, and particularly in today's economy, it's something that anybody can do. I don't believe that there's a certain type of person that can be an entrepreneur. We all have strengths, and the key is just finding ways to balance out your weaknesses with people who are smarter than you. You just hire them or bring them in as a business partner. You don't have to be all things to all people. And that's something women tend to think you have to do, right? We have that sort of superwoman mentality. And so we're going to be talking about being Wonder Women today, which is different than being superwomen. So this book was inspired by a quote by the Dalai Lama that was at the Peace Conference in Vancouver, BC in 2009. And you can Google this, go on YouTube and search for the Dalai Lama's speech at the 2009 Peace Conference. And not only is he's so adorable, the way he talks, but he was the one who said that in all of his travels around the world, all the people that he met, didn't matter what country it was, he was seeing a rise in what he called the divine feminine. This increase in feminine power and influence around the world, and that he said it would be Western women that would save the world. And the minute my co-author Phil Dyer and I heard that, we knew that was it. That was what we were trying to get to. That's what we understood to be true. We were watching all these amazing women entrepreneurs, and he's right on. And so that was a quote that launched the book. So in order to know where you're going, it's really important to know where you come from. You know, they say that if you don't learn from history, you're doomed to repeat it. And so I think it's very important as we're moving into this new economy to understand what didn't work, what was broken about our system previously, so that we don't repeat mistakes that got us to where we got to in 2008 when the markets crashed. Shirley Chisholm says, when morality comes up against profit, it's seldom profit that loses. Now, I'm a capitalist, so you're not going to ever hear me saying, don't make money, go sing Kumbaya, and, I don't know. You're just not going to hear that from me. I am a capitalist. I want to make money. I want to be wealthy. I want to have an empire. I want to fund other people's businesses. So none of what I'm going to talk about today is contrary to that. But women are uniquely positioned to launch certain types of businesses that I'm seeing, and it's super fascinating to me and to my co-author. So I want to talk about that type of business today. So I want you to think about these businesses on the screen here. Goldman Sachs, Enron, WorldCom, BP, Countrywide, even Bank of America, Arthur Andersen, and Madoff, Bernie, our good old friend Bernie. What do you think of when you look at these logos?
Lies.
Lies?
Not the word trust.
No trust. Yeah, that's ironic, right?
Masculine.
Masculine, right? That's true. And, maybe greed,
Predatory.
Evil. Unethical.
billions of dollars of our money gone, right? And we think of corporate executives and businesses that are more focused on the bottom line than they are on the impact of their actions on the people that are actually affected by what these companies do, right? And the impact that they have on the economy. So it's getting ahead at all costs. It's sort of this old way of doing business. We call it the Machiavelli way of doing business, which is the I win by you losing. I don't want to just win. I want to squash you. I want to take you down. I want you to suffer. I want to watch you cry, right? That's a very masculine sort of art of war way of waging business, right? And that was the principle on which all these businesses were built. And you know what? There's nothing wrong with competition. There's nothing wrong with being aggressive. There's nothing wrong with wanting to beat someone else. But taken to the extreme, we get what we had in 2008, right? Because it just got out of control. Greed is good. Have you ever thought about that? Have you thought about, we sort of accept these things. One of the phrases that drives me crazy is, it's not personal, it's just business. Have you ever thought about what that means? I personally don't want to live in a society where all humanity is taken out of business. Why do they have to be two separate things? That I've never understood. We accept this as the God's truth, do we not? In fact, I would venture to guess that everyone here has uttered this phrase at some point, right? Why is that? Why do we accept that business is devoid of humanity? It's devoid of caring about the other person. It's devoid of love or affection or friendship. It doesn't have to be. And those of us who do business with each other here understand that already. That's how we're functioning. I also want you to picture what the corporate environment has been like in the past. Picture, if you will, fluorescent lighting, cubicles, having to punch the clock, FaceTime, being at your desk from 8 until the boss leaves, right? Just so that you can get credit for being a good employee. And just sort of marching in lockstep, day in and day out. Some version of the future, like I'm going to retire, I'm going to save, and then someday I'm going to be able to live the way I want to live. And we've just accepted this, right? This is what you do. You work first, you get retirement in place, then if you are lucky enough to live through it and be healthy enough to function upon retirement, then you get to enjoy the fruits of your labor. Now that was pre-2008. 2008, a lot of people's retirement funds were eviscerated, right? And so a lot of people are left really struggling these days because of corporate greed, because of irresponsible behavior in the marketplace. And so, we're dealing with the reality that the business model that our capitalistic society has been built on is irretrievably broken. And it's that old school, greed is good, art of war, I win by you losing way of doing business. But I want you to think for a minute about a little girl who's age 5. If you ask a little girl who's age 5 what she wants to be when she grows up, these may be some of them. What did you want to be? I mean, think about what each of you wanted to be, and the men too. It was like astronaut, right? Or president of the United States, or ballerina, or famous actress, or painter, author, right? When you're little, you just have this amazing imagination about the things that you can become. Think about what happens to that same 5-year-old girl in the next 5 or 6 years of her schooling. By the time you get to girls in middle school and you ask them what they want to be when they grow up, what are the answers that you generally hear? Teacher? Yeah.
Nurse.
Lawyer, nurse. The universe of acceptable answers is kind of whittled down to maybe 5 or 6 things. And as we wrote the book, we got curious about why that is. Why does that happen in our culture in particular, in the United States for sure? So then we had to go back and do more research, and we looked into our educational system. If you think about our educational system, it was built and designed during the Industrial Revolution. And during that time, the major source of revenue in this country was factories, right? Factories were everything. The output of the factories is what generated revenue for towns and cities and states and even our country, right? Because we had exports and imports going at the time. So factories were everything. So what we needed is worker bees to function in these factories. We needed people that would show up on time, that wouldn't question the rules, that would stand on the line and do their job and do rote activity day in and day out. They wouldn't complain about it, they would show up, they would be reliable. That's what they started teaching children to be in our school system. And this is no mystery, there's lots of information out there about this. There's an incredible TED Talk by a man named Kenser Robinson called Why Schools Are Killing Creativity. I highly recommend that you watch it. Because you don't really think about, we all just accepted the educational system that we grew up in. Several years ago, I decided to pull my daughter out of school and homeschool her because I had a feeling that I could unleash who she is and her creativity and her own unique path by pulling her out of the system that we've all been through, right? It was sort of imposed upon all of us. And it's been remarkable to see the changes in her self-esteem, her confidence, her goals for the future from having made that decision. So don't underestimate the impact that our educational system has had on each of us. And if we have children, it's something we just accept, right? You don't want to be absent, you don't want to be late, you don't want to question authority. Do what you're told, right? I will follow the rules. I love this quote by Einstein. He said, "Everybody is a genius, but if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it will live its whole life believing that it's stupid." How many of you have felt at a point in your life that maybe you didn't fit in? Maybe, right? I certainly have. I've been in situations where I felt like I was a loser. I couldn't get it right. I was never good enough. I didn't do or say the right things. I think everybody, if you're honest, has felt that way at one time or another. And we have a culture that sort of reinforced this, let's all be sort of the same. Let's all walk in lockstep. But that's not working for us anymore as a society. Let's talk about this new economy that I mentioned. The new economy that really has come out of the Great Recession from 2008 is a realization that corporate profits at all costs are not a good thing, right? That there's a point at which we cross a point of diminishing returns, that there's harm that comes from that type of sort of single-minded pursuit of revenue and nothing else, right? And so we've heard mention of it today. Consumers are starting to care very deeply about the social impact, the environmental impact of the businesses that they do business with. And so there's an opportunity now to create organizations that are wildly profitable, but also have a conscience, a business with a heart. Dara Ambries, one of our board members, likes to talk about her boutique with a heart. You can absolutely be a socially conscious business, you can be an environmentally responsible business, or just an ethical business and still be wildly profitable. A society grows great when old men plant trees whose shade they know they shall never sit in. I love that, and I think that's something that we should all aspire to. The ones who are crazy enough to think they can change the world are the ones that do. So I just want to give you some examples of companies that are these are very successful companies financially, okay? I'm not talking about, anything but great business, right? Zappos, Tom's the one-for-one shoe campaign where you buy a shoe and a needy child in a developing country gets a shoe, pair of shoes. Kiva.org does microfinance for entrepreneurs in developing countries. Actually, they're doing loans here in the US now. Stella & Dot has an amazing social impact because not only are they selling jewelry, but they're creating entrepreneurs all over our country. And they have an amazing foundation now that's giving back. Richard Branson has always been a visionary on this front. He's always been a social entrepreneur, and he's a billionaire. It has not hurt him financially at all. Method, the Honest Company, Jessica Alba's company, is fantastic. If you guys haven't ever seen what she does, she's on track to be a $1 billion a year company. I think she launched like 6 years ago or something like that. So you certainly make money doing good. We call it doing well while you're making money. And women are uniquely situated to thrive in this kind of economy. Because at our core, women like to bring others along with them, right? So we're talking about how to lead like a woman. Women really are the key to our survival. There are 8.6 million women-owned businesses right now. 1.3 trillion in revenue is what they generate. And they are responsible for 7.8 million employees. And that's growing every year. These are kind of old numbers. And the statistics show that women actually make 1.5 more in revenue per year than men-led businesses. And I think it's partly because consumers are starting to care more about the types of businesses they do business with, right? So I think there's not a coincidence in that. Women have more growth, they're creating more jobs. I think the statistic was from last year, it was like 175,000 jobs were created during the Great Recession by women-led businesses, which doesn't seem like very many, except that we lost millions of jobs and there was no net gain for men-led organizations during the recession, but women-led organizations actually created 175,000 jobs in our country. Okay, but let's talk about the barriers that we face as women. And this matters to men too, because we're talking about interaction in the workplace. Whether you're the boss or whether you're an employee, this applies to you. Women face two massive hurdles that are getting in the way of your success. And the first one is that when you think about women entering the workplace, think about World War II, think about Rosie the Riveter. When women first went into the workplace here in the US, when it was not the norm during World War II for women to work, right? It was usually the man worked and the woman stayed home and raised the children. But when the war happened, somebody had to step in and take over, right? The factory jobs, the manufacturing jobs, I mean, they needed people to keep the country running while our boys were away fighting the war. So women happily stepped in, they felt like it was their civic duty, but many of them discovered they liked working, right? And they realized they really didn't want to stop working, and it really created a massive upset in our social fabric in this country. But one of the things that we learned as women is that in order to function in the workplace, we had to act like men. And you think of the women who went into the corporate world, like in the 1980s. Do you guys remember the movie Baby Boom? You remember Diane Keaton, and she had like the shoulder pads and the tie, and she was like hardcore, and just constantly trying to act like the guys. She would never admit she wanted to have children. She had this pristine apartment with her boyfriend. They didn't, the idea of having a child was completely foreign and actually sort of disgusting to them. And it's a funny movie if you haven't seen it, but women who went into the workplace at that time had to be fearless, right? You had to have so much courage to step into that environment and fight for being taken seriously. We owe so much to those women. We're standing on their shoulders today. The groundwork they laid and the rights that they won for all of us is a staggering thing. But we don't have to do that. How many of you have felt like you go to work every day and you leave 80% of who you are at the door? You have to just sort of step away and leave that there and sort of function within this confine. Usually it involves trying to act like the men if you're in a professional, and I've been a lawyer, so I've been in one of the most male-dominated industries. And so you really only have 20% of your waking hours, actually including sleeping hours, to be you. And so women tend to feel disconnected and unfulfilled and incredibly frustrated in their working lives. And that's one of the reasons I ended up doing what I do, because I spent a lot of time feeling that way. I looked around and saw all of my women friends who were feeling that way. We were all making great money, and we were miserable. And so I thought there's got to be a better way. And so I started exploring entrepreneurship, which is why I'm so passionate about it. But one of the things we have to stop buying into is that we don't have to be like men. Now this may sound controversial, but I do not want any of you leaning in. I don't know if you've read Sheryl Sandberg's book. She's got a lot of press on it, and I respect her enormously. She's very successful. She's the COO of Facebook, and she wrote a book last year called Lean In, and it's about why women are not in more C-suite, which is like CEO, COO level positions, why there aren't more of them on corporate boards. And I think she's got a lot of really good, valid points in her book, and I admire her enormously as a woman and as a professional. But her point is that women tend to lean away from opportunity in the workplace because we're all anticipating what we are going to do next in our lives, like get married and have children, and we're afraid to step forward and grab opportunities and put off having kids and put off getting married and put off those things in order to take advantage of these opportunities. And that's why so many women start sort of gung-ho when they graduate from college, and then there's this sort of area where we lose a ton of women who could be working their way up the ranks in the corporate environment but don't because they opt out. And she's saying, stop doing that. Lean into the table. Is that women know what's important. Let's get honest. Everyone in this room knows what matters to you. You know what your priorities are. And the women who are opting out are not opting out because they're not smart enough. They're not opting out because they're not ambitious enough. They're not opting out because they can't do it. They're opting out because they know what their priorities are, right? Women know, like, you want to have a family, you want to have kids, you want to have time for other things, and you're just not willing to engage in the behavior that you have to engage in order to succeed in a place like Facebook on the C-suite level. And that's totally valid. There's a very small percentage of women in this country who are wired to be a Sheryl Sandberg. The rest of us have to find a way to embrace entrepreneurship in a way that serves our lives. And we need to learn to lead like women. And you can even lead like women in a place like Facebook. But how do you do that? Well, this is probably the most important thing. Tiffany Nickerson Ficklin, and you guys, if you're staying for the Gala, you'll see a video that we're playing later, but she quoted in a video that we're showing, a quote by
Madeleine Albright.
Was it Madeleine Albright? Oh, I was thinking, okay, Madeleine Albright, where it's, she said there's a special place in hell for women who don't help other women. And we all believe that, right? But there's a, I think somebody asked a question earlier about what do you do if, you're getting undermined and other women are being catty about you, they're not supporting you. Well, let's just look inward for a minute at ourselves, okay? I want you to think about the time that you may have said one of these phrases to another girlfriend of yours. And the men, I doubt you've ever said any of these things. This is a very woman. Who does she think she is? I can't imagine having to be home all day with the kids. I can't imagine leaving my kids alone to be raised by someone else. She isn't ambitious enough. She might be smart, but did you see what she was wearing? Okay, do you guys relate to these comments? You've uttered them or you've heard them or something like them. I think about people like Hillary Clinton, who's a really polarizing figure. Why the hell is all we talk about her hair or her outfits? She's one of the most brilliant women in the world. I don't care what your political affiliation is. That woman is brilliant and ambitious and successful. And instead of celebrating a woman who's achieving her own goals in life and being successful at it, we want to vilify her. And we want to tear her down and we want to talk about why she doesn't look good. Okay? She's just one example. There's lots of examples of women in the media who get torn down because of their appearance. Man, look at Donald Trump. Are you kidding me? Like, what's with that? It's ridiculous. It's such a double standard, which we'll talk about in a minute. But I want you guys to ditch the double standard because we are perpetuating it. Women are the worst at perpetuating the double standard that actually keeps us down. Women are still earning only 70 cents on the dollar for every dollar that men are earning in the workplace. We're giving them reason because we're perpetuating this double standard. We're letting this conversation continue. Women govern 85% of all consumer product buying purchases. We influence all major purchases that happen within every household, from cars to houses to retirement plans to vacations. We have the power, ladies. We own it already, but we're not using it. We're letting the media tell us who we should be. We're letting ourselves be marginalized, and then we're just complaining about it. And that's what's most frustrating for me, is that if we got smart about this, we could change things very, very quickly. So this is the first step. Stop engaging in these conversations. If you hear somebody getting catty about another woman's appearance, just don't participate. And honestly, it'll take some discipline to not, because it feels good. Kind of feels good to get in there, yeah! And you want to be part of your tribe, right? And you want to relate to each other. Just stop. And if you have the courage, say, you know what, I think she's smart. I kind of like her, right? Counteract that negativity. Let the refining and improving of your own life keep you so busy that you have little time to criticize others. I don't know if you've heard the quote, I think it says, big minds think of ideas, average minds discuss events, and small minds discuss people. Don't be a small mind. Okay? Think bigger for yourself. Hold yourself to a higher standard. And what's amazing is that the ripple effect of that will be incredibly powerful, because you'll begin to influence people around you to do the same. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to avoid instant judgments of women who've chosen a different path than you have. Okay? Just because this person chose something different than you doesn't make them wrong. Okay, and if they're wrong, they'll learn, bless them. Send them on their way and bless them and say, I wish you success. That's not the path I would have chosen, but I wish you success. Encourage other women to think positive and think positive thoughts for them, wishing them the same success as you hope for yourself. And when jealousy or envy raises its head, I want you to think about why that's happening. Because honestly, sometimes when you feel that, it's because you're in your mind, you're like, oh, that person's actually got the courage to do what I wish I had the courage to do, and I'm not doing it. So instead of blessing her and saying, good for you, I'm going to criticize her because it makes me feel less small. So think about why you're getting triggered and look at your own choices and say, why am I feeling that way? And what changes do I need to make in my own life so that I don't feel that way anymore? Okay, so once you get over those hurdles of trying to stop being like a man, and we're going to ditch the double standard, these are the two biggest hurdles that women face in our culture, then we can talk about how to succeed as a woman, okay? And we call them our superpowers. I'm just going to blow through these really fast. They're in my book, which I had an example of, and it's walked away, which is fine. I hope whoever has it reads it and enjoys it and learns something. But if you want more detail, it's in the book. But the number one superpower, and I was in the lunch at the finding your life's purpose table, and this is it. This is finding your life's purpose. Authenticity is the single one most important superpower you can have. I mean, as an entrepreneur, you've got to know your why. Plato said, start as you mean to end up. That's what Stephen Covey said. It was know thyself. Plato said know thyself. Stephen Covey said start as you mean to end up. And what that means is you've got to know yourself and know what's right for you. Know what kind of life you want to live. Know what you want your daily life to be like. When you wake up, when you go through your day, when you go to bed, what did you want your day to be like? And when you look back on your life, what do you want to say that you accomplished? What kind of legacy do you want to say that you left? Those are the things that you need to tap into when it comes to, particularly when building a business, but when you're building a career as well. You've got to know these things because otherwise you're going through life on autopilot. And I don't want to see anybody getting on their deathbed and then looking back and saying, what did I just do? How did I spend my time on this planet and why? So spend some time getting quiet. I mean, I honestly advocate going away for a weekend by yourself or with a couple of people that are going through the same process as you, and really give yourself time to think about this. What matters to you? My book has some exercises about how to craft personal mission statements. There's some great assessments that we talk about in the book that you can take. It's not Myers-Briggs. There's some others that I think you should take that will give you some insight. But get to know yourself, because authenticity is your single most important superpower, nor the legal part of your business. That is the fastest way to bankruptcy and ruin, and I'm not being dramatic. I spent many, many years as a business litigator litigating disputes for businesses that had imploded, and it's ugly. So you want to take care of the legal foundation in your business. And the way I like how I quoted myself. Do you guys like that? But I really believe this. Tending to the legal foundation in your business is profound. It is stepping into and embracing your power. It is honoring yourself and your hard work. It is ensuring your future success. It's making a bold statement to the world that you are to be taken seriously. Okay? Think of it that way. Stop nitpicking on how much it's going to cost. Stop trying to find the cheapest way to get it done. Please stop going through LegalZoom and places like that where you're not actually getting any legal advice and you're paying them money for what, I don't know, what, they don't really provide anything because they can't give you legal advice. So you're paying them to be a scribe. Be smart. Spend money on the things that matter. Legal help is one of the things that matters. Okay, it's more important than anything else because without it, your entire business is built on sand. And that includes everything from intellectual property, from trademarks and copyright protection. I'm talking about registered trademarks and copyrights that you have to file with the US government in order to get. If you haven't done that, you don't have a trademark and you don't have a copyright that's going to be one that won't mean anything, won't be enforceable. You want contracts with every meaningful relationship you have in your business. And please, ladies, stop saying, I just want a one-page agreement. It's just too complicated if it's more than 1 page. Do you know how many pages the agreements are that big corporations use? Kelly, tell me, give me some page numbers on how big the contracts are in your world. 100 pages, 150, 300, right? I mean, you can't have a meaningful agreement. She's a lawyer too, among her many other talents. You can't have a meaningful agreement on one page, okay? So stop saying that. That makes you sound inexperienced and naive. You've got to have meaningful agreements, okay? Take it seriously. And then probably the most important thing is your legal structure. So having an LLC in place or a corporation, depending on what your business is, consult a lawyer. And don't ask your CPA about this. That's not, talk to a lawyer about what your legal structure should be. CPAs love to give advice on this, and when my clients come to me and tell me what their CPA has told them, they're generally wrong, in my opinion. So make sure you consult a lawyer. Work with a CPA on it, because CPAs are part of the process, but it's just too important. Okay, superpower 3 is integrity, and this is sort of what we're talking about, this new economy. And this is where women are really uniquely positioned to lead. If you guys are staying for the gala tonight, you're going to discover when the 11 scholarship finalists pitch that they all have a social mission. It's been fascinating to me because we didn't pick them for that reason. But when we all met with our first meeting to kind of start helping them prep for their pitch tonight, every single one of them had some kind of greater good purpose that they were passionate about that was tied into their business model. And I think it's just the way we're wired, and I think it's so wonderful. And I love to see our, I love to see capitalism going in this direction. And so this is about doing good beyond the bottom line. Arianna Huffington said, the term success should include the values of well-being, wisdom, and kindness. Go-getters, I hope, will become go-givers. I love that quote. Arianna is an example of somebody who's a huge success, but believes very passionately about this very thing that we're talking about. So let's just, instead of saying it the other way, let's say it's not just business, it is personal, okay? Put your humanity back into business and see what happens. And superpower 4 is curiosity. I won't get into a lot of detail about this one because there's a lot to say, but it's been said over and over today. Know your numbers. Even if you're intimidated by it, you need to get a good CPA. I get a financial advisor, and I want you to know you got to know your revenue streams. You got to know all your costs. You got to know what's coming in and going out every single day in your business. If you ignore that, you're not a real business owner, okay? So know your numbers, be curious about them. Again, let it empower you. And the more you learn about your numbers, the more you learn about the metrics in your business, the more empowered you're going to be. It's actually kind of addictive once you start to put yourself in that position. So don't be afraid of it, and don't be afraid to seek help in getting educated about that. This was me when I started out. I was a lawyer. Like, I didn't need to know math. I don't know if you guys remember this skit, but Chevy Chase was it was a skit on Saturday Night Live, and he was a candidate for some big office, like congressional. What's that?
He's supposed to be Gerald Ford.
It was Gerald Ford. Yeah, and somebody asked him something about, numbers or how he's going to balance the budget, and he just kind of leaned forward and said, I was told there'd be no math, which is, I say that all the time. So these are just some examples of what you need to know. You need to manage your cash flow. You need to pay attention to profit and loss. You need to know who your ideal client is, because if you don't know who that is, you're not marketing to the right people, you're not getting the right types of clients, you don't even know where your money is going to be coming from, and so you can't strategically plan your marketing and your PR unless you know who you're speaking to. So that's a part of your money story, is knowing who your ideal client is. And they say what's measured is improved, what's paid attention to grows. So the more you measure the finances in your business, the better chance you have of growing them. And then KBMs are key business metrics, and I have a whole thing on them in the book. Phil Dyer, my co-author, is a financial planner and financial expert, and there's some great info in there. They're just specific things that you should be tracking in your business, and that you can actually begin to learn trends. Like, you can begin to anticipate what's going to happen from season to season in your business based on these key business metrics. So they're not just knowing where you are now, but they are a tool for predicting the future, which is a really powerful thing. So I won't get into all of them because there's a ton. Superpower 5 is creativity. And creativity really has to do with your team. Because you want to enable the people around you and yourself to be in as creative a space as you can all the time. And so you want to not find mini-me's in your business, but you want to find people that balance out your strengths and weaknesses. So you know what your strengths are. You need to find people that you surround yourself with that are geniuses in the areas that you suck in, okay? So if you're not good at numbers, find a CFO, or a financial expert, and bring them in and have them educate you. I like it when I'm surrounded by people who are a lot smarter than me, right? I think it was Winston Churchill talked about, or Abraham Lincoln, his cabinet was filled with people that he said were more brilliant than he was, and actually bipartisan as well, which I think was amazing. But don't be intimidated by people who are smarter than you, and especially if they balance out your strengths. Do not populate your business with mini-me's, because that's not going to get you where you need to go in your business. But if you encourage people in your business, once you have employees, or even if you're working with contractors, to excel at what they're good at, release them to excel at what they're good at. Give them permission to do that. That taps into their creativity, and your business is going to benefit from that. Superpower 6 is optimism. And Jim Rohn, he was one of the founders of the self-help movement, he said that you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. And for some of you, now that you're like counting who those people are, you're feeling a little scared. But really, think about it. I mean, because who you're around influences you. It influences your life goals. It influences how you spend your time. It influences how you spend your money. Everything. How you vacation. Where you live. What kind of car you drive. And so I'm not saying kick your friends and family to the curb, but what I am saying is you need to be strategic about finding a tribe of people that support what you're trying to do. And that's what Hautepreneurs is all about. That was the impetus behind it, was to create a tribe, right? To create a peer network where maybe we weren't getting the support we needed from spouses or loved ones or friends, because honestly, if you're an entrepreneur, most of your friends probably don't understand you. And like if you're like me, every time I tell my mom a business idea, she goes, "Somebody going to actually pay you for that?" And I'm like, "I don't know." It's like you don't want to be around people that make you doubt. I mean, it's important to get good feedback, right? You want to be open to if it's not a viable idea, but you need to be around people that say, "All right, how can I help you? This is a great idea. Let me support you in this." And so that's what the whole mastermind concept is around, is finding that tribe that has your back and will help you achieve your goals. So think about that, and maybe you need to add some people to your tribe right now to help you get where you're trying to go. And then finally, superpower 7 is courage. And entrepreneurship is not for the faint of heart. It is a full contact sport. You're going to get completely bruised and beat up in the process. And you are going to fail. I know we've talked about failure today. It happens, it sucks, nobody wants to fail, but failure is not permanent. And neither is success. So we have to just embrace every moment that we go through and take from it what we can and learn. I love what Lisa said this morning. In fact, you made me cry when you said, "I grew today." It's one of the most profound things I've heard in a long time. In fact, I'm going to add a slide to my PowerPoint and quote you, Lisa. I grew today. Put it on my bill. But I just want to encourage all of you, no matter what your goals are, I want you to lead like a woman. I want you to tap into what makes you unique and special. Bring your own talents and skills to what you do. Don't let anybody be the gatekeeper to your success. Stop asking for permission. Just be yourself. Pursue your path. And don't quit. As Winston Churchill said, never, ever, ever, ever give up. Fall down 7 times, stand up 8. That's all you have to do, and you will always be a success. Thank you.